Hey, it's Gauntlet, and I make D&D content that nobody asked for.
Hey, how's it going? My intro lies a little bit, someone actually did ask for this kind of content. Sometimes as a dungeon master or player, we kind of struggle with monsters. Sometimes they're not very interactive, or they're boring, or there's no higher level version. But today, Gauntlet is providing for you. We're working with the carry-on crawler today. No, not that pipsqueak, we're working with one of these. Here's the stat sheet, if that's all you need, and you're gonna check out, totally fine, see you later. However, I recommend you stick to the end of the video because it's gonna help me out, and I'm also gonna go over the stat sheet breakdown, the description and the build-up, and finally the stratagems, the strengths, the weaknesses, and how you wanna properly run this kind of monster. Anyway, you already know, timestamps down below, so let's go. Okay, so some of the things that it changed is its armor class being a 16. You want it to be relatively a challenge, but not impossible for your players to hit. Hitting is fun, missing sucks. The reason why it's also that low is because of its HP. I maximized it along with the constitution mathematics that I've changed. It's got 90 HP. Reason is because this thing's only gonna last roughly 3 or 4 rounds against a party of 4 or 5 level 5s to 8s. The bigger the HP, the longer it lasts, the more opportunities for this monster to change the name of the fight. Strength, Constitution, and Wisdom are its strong suits. Saving throws to further complement its strengths, same thing with its skills. Damage resistance is poison, just makes sense. This thing kills other carry-on crawlers that have poison attached to them. It doesn't know any languages, and it's a CR9. I plugged it into a CR calculator. You already know the CR calculation system is a complete doo-doo, so that's that you're working with, okay? Okay, so some of the passive abilities that it has keen smell. It makes sense. It's trying to hunt down the dead bodies, the cadavers, and potentially other carry-on crawlers. Spider climb, that's a centipede, I don't know what else to tell you. Stench, I feel like this monster being so upgraded in such an apex of the carry-on crawlers that the smell of death is so potent that if you're within 5 feet of it, you get poisoned. Tentacle HP, now this is very important. There's 8 tentacles on a carry-on crawler, and the tentacles I have added some pretty cool abilities, so the players having the option to lob them off or damage them is going to be very important. You always want your monster to have some level of interactivity, as much of it as you possibly can. It becomes much more of a memorable fight. Your players are going to absolutely love it. So it can attack multiple times because you want it to contend with a big party. All the attacks have a +8 to hit. Why? Because you want your monster to be effective in combat. Having that +8 there is gonna help, trust me. Tentacles having the ability to paralyze and deal bludgeoning and deal poison damage makes it a very scary target, especially due to its 15 feet reach. It's gonna be able to hit targets a little bit in the back line. The cadaver crushing bite, it's just a bite, it bites you, I don't know. That's it. Body slam, this one's pretty fun because it can attack from the backside as well. It doesn't actually have to face the target to hit them with this. All it really does is it just kind of... Hope I didn't break my headphones after that. I gave it some bonus actions to give it a little bit more utility in the combat to make it able to change the name of the contest. These don't necessarily deal any damage or anything, but they change the tactics of the fight. So being able to grapple you with the tentacles, that's why the tentacle HP is going to be very important. And it has the ability to burrow, get out of damage just in case. It avoids the player's supernova that they're going to use against this thing. Lastly, its reactions. Now these two are very important. One is a little bit of a last laugh thing, but the consumability is important because it is self-sustaining. It is something that it can use to keep itself alive and utilize the environment around it very well. All it does is it eats a body, which makes sense. It's a carry-on crawler. It's probably collected a bunch of corpses and dead bodies to feast on. Or a player, it's recently downed and it consumes and breaks down the body. And it heals its hit dice worth of health. Death stench. Now this thing, when it dies, it releases this horrible stench as its gut bursts open. It deals 8d6 poison damage. That's the equivalent of a fireball. And what's even cooler is that it can attract other carry-on crawlers, so that maybe when the players are trying to kind of escape or do whatever they need to do, other carry-on crawlers nearby will begin to close in on the location. These features truly make it seem like the apex of the carry-on crawlers, that this is the big bad one. So I can't stress this enough. We are here to challenge your players, not kill them. When it comes to describing this monster, you want to describe it as being the top dog, the apex of the carry-on crawlers. When the players are hunting this thing, you can leave burrows that the players have to navigate and look around. You can see drag marks of corpses or whatever it may be. weapons and other debris found within the tunnel. Make it very suspenseful. Describe that potentially at any winding corner that they might run into the monster, yet never do. That hunting parties went out to fight this thing, but there aren't many bodies left. Maybe it tells the players that this thing collects corpses after it's done killing them. That daggers of poisonous coated bolts and crossbows and vials, all used but clearly not effective. With information like that, it alludes to the players that this thing operates a certain way, that it has certain behaviors and mannerisms. This kind of information will help the players plan and properly prepare for the encounter. This won't make them completely stomp out the monster. No. You want to give the players a little something so they aren't completely blindsided and you absolutely swamp them. You want them to have fun, and they'll feel cool figuring that stuff out. So don't tell them right away. If they don't get it, they don't get it. Some of the musics you're going to want to use is, I recommend looking at Mortal Shell. It's got some pretty dark tones and dark ambience, and the artist and the creator who made that kind of soundtrack is my personal favorite. You might even use Outlast, a horror game, to make this monster seem a lot more scary than it actually is. Hopefully that will help you out in describing and making this monster a lot scarier than it actually is. Okay, so some stratagems. Again, its strengths are in its HP, its constitution, and its strength. This thing is a brute, and you want to use close quarters combat. This thing has utterly no ranged combat aside from its tentacles with 15 feet. So you have to use this thing in close quarter spaces. Ranged combatants are really going to struggle here. It's going to want to bring things as close as it possibly can. This thing is aware of its poisonous stench. The more poison it can spread out, the better. So it eventually is going to cycle its way through everyone in the party. If things get a little hairy, it can alternatively just eat a corpse with its consumability and heal up a little bit, and then a bonus action it can use into burrowing and getting away by at least 30 feet. Plus, it being in a close quarters with, when it does die, its death stench is going to be an absolute nightmare. If this thing is caught outside, or if it is caught in an area where the backline has a lot of opportunity to keep kiting in at range, this thing is going to struggle quite a lot, so it's going to have to focus on the melee and close range. Now, before you go, I have 2 things to say to you. I made some other videos I worked really hard on, please check them out. And 2, want me to make more content like this, where I upgrade monsters, go over some builds that I know of? Let me know in the comments below. Anyway, that's all I got for you guys. Later.